we don't really know when they do these movements or even why. Maybe it's due to food source, maybe mating season, and they like Komodo mantas better. I'm not really sure.
Yeah. It's more likely like they want to go on holiday other than Panida or maybe other than Komodo.
Off-Gassing, a scuba podcast with host Nick Hogel. During our stay at Cenigan, we attended a Manta presentation conducted by the members of the Marine Megafauna Foundation, a nonprofit with a focus of protecting the most endangered ocean giants and the habitats they call home. In this episode, I speak with Janis, a project leader, and Raina, a student completing an internship. We speak about what led them into the underwater world, the work of the foundation, some facts about mantas, why citizen science is so important, and what you can do to help. Enjoy.
Janis Argeswara.
And Raina Alfira.
So the first question I usually like to ask is, tell me how you got into scuba diving. So whoever wants to go first.
I can go first. So for me, I first got into scuba diving when I was in high school. My aunt, she was in charge of the famous Miss Scuba Indonesia. It's like a Miss Universe, but specifically for scuba diving. It's pretty cool. So she was in charge of that, and at that point she got discounts when we went to dive centers. So since we had discounts, I decided to join, and that was my first time scuba diving, which I've always been really interested because of watching a lot of movies and documentaries growing up. But after getting that in high school, I didn't really have the chance to dive again because diving is a very expensive sport. So, and then I tried to figure out how do I dive more for free. And so what I did was I majored in marine sciences in university, and that way I actually get to dive for free until now.
So when you took that first course, was it just like a manta to water, or was it just, fish to water, but sorry. Was it absolutely you got into it and I love this, or was there a little bit of nervousness going into it?
It was pretty nervous, but I actually really enjoyed it, just being able to be in the water. My open water course wasn't super fun. It was somewhere off the coast of Jakarta. So
Thousand Islands?
Yeah, Thousand Islands. The visibility wasn't that good, so I really didn't see anything. But and then in college, I was able to dive into Lamben and East Bali, and that was actually the first time that I actually can see something underwater. And that was actually really interesting. And at that point, I was still figuring out my buoyancy, things like that. But it was definitely an activity that I see myself doing a lot.
Well, my first time diving was in college because that was my very reason to go to college. Like, I don't know what else. I just go to marine science. Marine science in my place has the best organization for diving clubs and other stuff like that.
And where are you from?
I'm from Jakarta as well, but my college is Central Java. And after that, I just went to the organization and following a dive club. And I do that because it's like more cheaper to get a certified open water dive than you are when you are outside of that club.
So how was your first breath underwater?
My first breath underwater, that's pretty cool because we went to Karimun Jawa, and Karimun Jawa has like a great reef area, mangrove and seagrass. So when I went down, I was like, oh my god. Like, there's such a big difference because I used to do snorkeling in Thousand Islands, and yeah, just like Janis said, it's not much to see. And then I went to Karimun, and then it was like, oh my god,
where is that?
It's like off the coast of Central Java, yeah, and it has very colorful corals, but it has less big fish, and megafauna there.
it seems like marine science was kind of in the cards for both of you.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell me a little bit about how that program is, what's involved with it?
For me, I chose to continue to do my studies, my undergrad studies in Bali. And the university here, the local university, was actually fairly new for the Faculty of Marine Sciences. Unlike Raina's university, it's probably one of the oldest in marine science.
Okay.
But in my case, I was the fourth generation, how do you say it? When I came first to my faculty, there were no graduate students yet.
Oh,
so no
okay.
one's graduated from the faculty yet. So I was like, we were like
one of the first groups to come through. Yeah.
So which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So that we were actually, they tried a lot of different teaching methods with us.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting.
Some good, some bad, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, this didn't work, this worked, things like that. So we were just like the trial and errors for the university. But it was kind of nice because I thought about it and I wanted to go to a school where I was surrounded by the water. And meanwhile, a lot of universities in Indonesia that have marine sciences and are pretty old are located super far from the ocean.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot of them are in the mountains.
Oh, okay.
Which kind of doesn't really make sense from my perspective. So I decided to take a risk and take it in Bali where everything was pretty new. But it turned out pretty good. Cool. I was really glad that I actually had more fieldwork experience than I had with my friends who were far from the ocean. In Bali, from my university, we can just go to the ocean with a 20-minute bike ride, and you can dive anywhere. But in other places where the universities are in mountains, you need to take like a 3-hour bus ride. So it's very, it's very convenient. Yeah, but I liked it. I liked my undergrad. It was really nice. It was fun.
How was the experience for you? The marine science, kind of getting into that, the whole experience.
Actually, my university, they teach marine science in a very general way. So we learn everything, like literally everything from the microbiology and up to the fauna and stuff, and the big fauna and stuff, but not specified. So I was like, oh, okay, I have to pick one or two things to focus on, so that there would be a class, the specified class that I want, and another one that I have to do. But yeah, it might be a bit of to me a bit of a letdown because they don't do focusing like that, because then a lot of kids, the juniors, they would just tell me like, why do we have to do it like this? Why can't they just teach us something that we want to be taught? But then I'm like, that's just up to you, because even if they taught you something that you want to be taught, then you would be bored, and then you want to change the subject again and everything like that. But then, because they don't have megafauna, I have to focus on something else. Usually they just, most kids my age, they focus on either corals or mangroves because that's easier and more like they can be found everywhere. When I got here for the internship, because of my marine science, it's like, okay, I have a new focus I can do.
And here we are currently sitting in the office of the Marine Megafauna Foundation. Who wants to tell me a little bit about that?
So the Marine Megafauna Foundation is basically a nonprofit organization that was started by two co-founders, which is Dr. Andrea Marshall and Dr. Simon Pierce. They met while they were doing their PhD in University of Queensland, where Andrea, she was the first person to do a PhD on manta rays, which is really cool, and Simon did a PhD on whale sharks. So that's when the two combined forces and decided to make Marine Megafauna Foundation. They first started in Mozambique, but we had Helen and Peter who learned a lot of things about marine megafauna, specifically manta rays in Mozambique, and they moved here to Nusa Penida Marine Protected Area in Bali, and they kind of brought what they learned from MMF Mozambique here to Nusa Penida, and that's kind of how MMF Indonesia started. By the two of them, and They kind of grew the organization, and they recruited other people, including our previous team leader, Elita Germanov, or Ellie. She was a PhD student who is studying microplastics and marine megafauna. So microplastics in manta ray and whale sharks feeding ground. Yeah, that's kind of how MMF Indonesia started and how it was formed.
How long is well, I believe it's more than Nusa Penida. How long has it been a marine protected area?
So from what I know, Nusa Penida MPA have been formed, I think, in 2015. It took quite a long time for it to be made because, there had to be like a lot of bureaucracy and collaborations between local stakeholders and the government as well.
All the red tape to get through.
Yeah. Indonesia is very, very difficult when it comes doing that. But finally, it worked, became an MPA, and now the MPA consists of 3 main islands, Nusa Penida, Nusa Lembongan, and Nusa Ceningan.
How did you two get involved?
For me, I was doing my thesis, something like a thesis, and then my friend, she was in another project, but not from MMF. She gave me a poster from MMF looking for an internship.
Oh,
because
cool.
I was stuck on my thesis. I just like, I met all the criteria. I'm gonna try it first. When I heard back from MMF, I was like, oh my god, I really got in. I didn't think I would do it. And yeah, after that, I just told my teachers, and then I would maybe take a break from the thesis for a while, and then you should just be graduating. This is gonna be a good experience for me.
And how long ago was that?
That was like March 2023. After that, like you just need to keep tabs on us. You just need to tell us everything. If they have something, maybe we know for. Yeah, they told me to look out for the corals, and then, no way, I'm gonna be seeing the megafauna here. There's no way I'm gonna see corals when I see manta rays on my face.
Yeah, so that's kind of how Raina got involved in MMF Indonesia. Well, for me, I started my internship with MMF in 2018. I was helping Ellie with her microplastics and megafauna PhD research. And then for my undergraduate thesis, because that's a thing here in Indonesia, is that I took part with Ellie's PhD, where I focus on microplastics and manta rays. And after my second internship, she offered me to be the first Indonesian research assistant. So I was like, yes, of course. I'm originally from Jakarta, but I do not plan on going back there for work or to live. So I was really, really happy when I immediately got a job after I finished my undergrad, because I get to live in Bali. And yeah, so that's kind of how it started, and I've been here ever since. Well, I'm still part research assistant, but now I am more of a project leader of the manta ray reproductive ecology.
The first time I saw manta rays was in Raja Ampat, and I was out there on a conservation project for a month. Really, really great experience. And I remember we'd seen a few mantas, and we went to this one spot one day because we were hearing from I don't know if it was other local islands or the liveaboards coming through, that there's been a lot of sightings over here. So I remember we cruised over there, and one of the most amazing days of diving I've ever had. There was like 15 manta rays. We usually would go to one spot, do our surface interval on the way to the other spot. We ended up doing 2 dives there just because they were hanging around. And I actually have it on video. I believe, I might be wrong, but I'm almost positive I have it on video. You kind of see this manta, and it like looked like it was just, basically it was about to throw up. And then it threw up, and there was a manta researcher on there as well. And then they went over and just kind of sifted through everything, and you could actually see the microplastics in the throw up. So I guess that leads to my next question is, we all know that microplastics are a pretty big deal, pretty bad around the world right now. How much is it affecting the mantas, or even the other megafauna in the area, or in the world, I should say?
So here in Indonesia, we all know that Indonesia is indeed one of the biggest polluters, according to several research. I mean, I guess it makes sense because population-wise, the more populated a country is, the more trash you have. So it kind of makes sense, to be honest. And we do see a lot of trash here in Bali, and especially within the MPA, we see a lot of trash during rainy season. So December, January, February, we see a lot of trash, and that's when we usually do our microplastics project. Since manta rays and whale sharks are filter feeders, meaning they filter the water to eat. They filter the water and kind of catch the plankton within their gill rakers. Most likely, if there are microplastics in the water, they would also be ingesting the microplastics since the sizes aren't so different with plankton. So we did that research, and what Ellie found out was that there are definitely microplastics within the MPA and in Komodo National Park, and also in Pantai Bentar in East Java, which is a seasonal whale shark feeding ground. And specifically for manta rays, we did see that manta rays also ingest the plastics because we found microplastics in the poop of manta rays and also the vomit, like what you said in Raja. So unfortunately, they are definitely ingesting these plastics, but we also know that they are able to put it back out there. So like it's not really stuck inside their body. Okay. So it's like a combination of like good news, bad news. But the thing is with plastics, so it's not absorb, but it's adsorb. So instead of absorbing like a sponge, it kind of like these things. So for example, if there's like a plastic that goes through a river, and there's like heavy metals and other pollutions within the river, the pollution will kind of bind itself to the plastic, creating like a layer of pollution within the plastic. And when it is ingested by any animal, those pollution can leak. So if they have heavy metals, for instance, absorbed by the plastic, the heavy metal can leak into the manta ray, and it might affect more of a long-term influence, such as having the pollution kind of ingrained within their body. So things that aren't direct threats, but it can be passed down from generations. So it's more of a slow, long-term threat that we're looking, because turtles, they see plastic bags as jellyfish, and if they eat it, they will feel full, and they probably won't continue to eat, and then they die. But with manta rays, since it's microplastics, it might not have that dramatic influence like whales or turtles have, but it's more of a long generational thing. The thing is, manta rays, they have very slow reproductive growth, and so if the mom have accumulated some sort of pollution and it transfers to the baby and things like that, it might be a problem for future generations of manta rays. And we don't really know their resilience level, so there's still so many things we don't know yet.
There's not a lot of studies has been on it. Yeah,
so these are all just hypotheses of things that might happen from plastic pollution to manta rays.
Sorry to go down the dark road early on in the conversation, so we'll kind of veer it into a different direction before we maybe come back to that. But as an intern, what are you doing here on a day-to-day basis?
Usually, if we have a dive center, we would just go with either Big Fish, Ceningan, or other dive center that we know. If we go to Manta Point, we would take pictures of the manta, like belly prints, for our database, and after that maybe some processing the photo that we got, and then we post it on Manta Matcher. And sometimes maybe if we go to Crystal Bay or north of Penida, we would see turtles. We take picture of turtles too, and we would post it on IoT, Internet of Turtles. It's another database.
Just for the listeners that might not know, why do you take pictures of the belly?
So like humans have fingerprints, mantas have belly prints. That's how we identify which individual this is. And sometimes we track them down too, because they would go from place to place, like from Penida to Komodo. And there are several cases, like So, like Janis's favorite manta, cauliflowers. Yeah, she would go to Komodo and then back to Penida. Sometimes we would see her here, and then sometimes we would get notified and like, oh, we see her in Komodo. And yeah, it would help. Like it would help very much. Like we see like, oh, we don't have this one on our database. Maybe it's a new individual, or maybe it's a yearling, or maybe someone new we've never seen before.
What is the longest, I guess, migration that has been seen with a manta ray?
So firstly, we don't really call them migration.
Sorry.
Because migration tends to mean it's seasonal.
Okay.
But with manta rays, it's a bit more random. We don't really know when they do these movements or even why. Maybe it's due to food source, maybe mating season, and they like Komodo mantas better. I'm not really sure.
Yeah. It's more likely like they want to go on holiday other than Penida, or maybe other than Komodo. Like, oh, I'm bored here. I'm just gonna go to Nusa Penida.
So do you ever see mantas from, I guess, the other side of the world?
I think that's a bit too far.
Okay.
For reef manta rays specifically to travel. I'm not really sure about the giant oceanic manta rays, which are the manta rays that are much, much bigger than the ones that we see here in Nusa Penida. But in Nusa Penida and Komodo National Park, we definitely see a lot of different individuals coming back and forth. Again, we do not really know why or when they do this. Sometimes I think one of them, I think it's Dr. Evil. She has been seen in Nusa Penida, I think sometime in March. I'm not really sure of the month, but like in one period of time. And within about 40 days, she was seen in Komodo National Park. So the longest she would be traveling is 40 days, but who knows, right? Because we really rely on citizen science, so it really depends on how quick or how many people were there to see her during their dive or snorkel. So we don't tag them just yet because we need some funding. But if someone were to take pictures of Dr. Evil before 40 days, it will actually tell us even better about the amount of time they actually need to go between Komodo and Nusa Penida. But yeah, that really depends on citizen science, depends on whoever is there to take pictures of the traveling manta ray.
How did the name Dr. Evil come up? Or how, like, the names you're talking about, Cauliflower, Dr. Evil, how are these names coming up?
For Dr. Evil, she has this belly prints that look like our pinky, like
okay.
Yeah, you know, from the movie, like
yeah.
What movie is it?
Austin Powers.
Austin Powers,
Austin,
yeah.
And for cauliflowers, he has this shark bite. It looks like a cauliflower.
Okay.
So we call it cauliflower.
And then I was wondering if you could, for somebody that might not know, what do you exactly mean when you say citizen science?
So citizen science is basically a data collection method where we rely a lot on citizens, on the public, who aren't necessarily researchers. So how this works is that the public will take pictures and submit it to the researchers who are in charge of that project. And this does not only work for manta rays, but also other things as well. For mantas, like what Raina said, manta rays have belly prints, which is their unique individual pattern. So if anybody takes pictures of that belly print and upload it to mantamatcher.org, which is the global manta ray database, they will be helping with our data collection. And so that is what we call citizen science, because we rely a lot of our data submissions from the public. And this can also work with plants as well, or like algae. For example, in Florida, sometimes they have like algae blooms. And so a lot of the people, they take pictures of the condition of the beach when they have algae there, the sargassum usually, and then upload it to the app or the website and put in the location, the time, and what the conditions were. And that's a really good way for scientists to collect data without actually being there all the time.
You say that people can take pictures of turtles as well as, I think you said, whale sharks, or just bigger megafauna?
Yeah, so other than manta rays, we also have a like the global database for whale sharks or any other sharks, whales and turtles. So with turtles, you can take pictures of their left and right facial patterns. That is their individual fingerprint. With whales, you can take pictures of their tails because they have like different, not patterns, but just like curves around it. I don't really work a lot with marine mammals.
Okay.
But that's what I know. And I think with whale sharks, they have different spot patterns on the left and right side of their face near their gills. So that's where you can take pictures of them and upload it to one of these global databases. I think to look them up, you can just look for whale shark global database or whale shark citizen science on Google, things like that.
So a couple of questions. We'll go back to the mantas. If I am in the water with a manta, what are some do's and don'ts? And then I don't know if that would lead into my next question of is tourism having a big effect on the movement of mantas or just mantas in general? So you could either question first.
So some do's and don'ts about interacting with manta rays and generally other marine megafauna is this is something that we always brief to our dive guests or snorkel guests is to stay at least 3 to 5 meters away from the manta ray. How we like our space, they also like their space. So it's really important to respect their space and not touching them, not harassing them, and not chasing them. Since manta rays are very, very gentle, they are pretty approachable, but again, it's more of us respecting their space as we are in their habitat. We are basically in their houses, in their homes. And then it is recommended for boats to drop their guests at least 10 to 15 meters away from the designated cleaning station, where cleaning station is like the manta ray spa. So that way the boats don't, because boats are loud, like their propellers, their machine are super loud, and so it might scare the manta rays away. And when manta rays aren't in the place where we expect them to be, nobody really wins. From other boats, from other dive centers, snorkel boats, nobody sees the manta ray, so nobody really sees anything. And that's something that will become a problem in the future because people rely on tourism here within the MPA. For your second question about the tourism definitely has its ups and downs, has its pros and cons. Pros is, it's a very, very big industry within the MPA and people rely a lot on tourism. However, it became a problem during COVID because people relied on it so much that they actually ditched their seaweed farming. Back in the days, seaweed farming was a big part of Nusa Lembongan, Penida, Cenigan, but ever since tourism started, they kind of ditched it because tourism produced more money. However, ever since COVID, they've been doing both, trying to balance out between seaweed farming and tourism, understanding that they cannot rely fully on tourism. But yeah, the pros is definitely tourism is a really good income for the people here. They rely a lot on the manta ray sightings and the health of the habitats within the MPA. However, when tourism starts to be a little bit too much, it is definitely not nice for the manta rays or even the habitat. For manta rays themselves and molas and turtles or really any other sharks, some guests might try to chase them away. Or for instance, with molas, we have seen several divers chasing down a mola or encircling the mola until it has nowhere to go. And that is very, very stressful for the animal, and it might make them move elsewhere, like move their habitat elsewhere. And again, if that happens, it's not really good for anyone. Also, the number of boats is definitely becoming a problem. In Nusa Penida, we haven't implemented a regulation that limits the number of boats per dive site per period of time. In Komodo National Park and Raja Ampat, they have that implemented, and it's to ensure a safe and comfortable and sustainable tourism experience with the manta rays and other marine megafauna. But in Nusa Penida, it can be a bit more challenging to implement that. So it's taking quite a long time for it to be implemented, but it is something that should be implemented soon, because at some point we have seen dive sites with more than 30 boats in one time. So we definitely have more divers and we have manta rays in the water. And that is really not fun. As a researcher, obviously I feel bad for the manta rays because sometimes it just gets super crowded with their habitat. And sometimes inexperienced divers might bump or destroy the coral bummies, not really good buoyancy, things like that. But also as a diver, just a regular diver, it's really scary to dive when there are so many boats around me. It's really scary because you never know, especially sometimes the captains might not see you. That's why it's very important to have your SMB in Nusa Lembong and Penida. So yeah, it's a combination of making it a very good space and comfortable space for the animals, but also just having a good dive experience.
When you were mentioning, you said the manta spa. What, you want to go into that a little bit?
Manta rays have this behavior which is cleaning. So that means they have little fish, like reef fishes, cleaner fish, what we call them, to come up to their body and feed off the parasites from the manta rays and fix their wounds, things like that. And that's what we call manta rays cleaning. What I would explain it as a manta ray spa, because it is a very peaceful experience for them, and we want to respect that, right? Because obviously when you're in a spa, you don't want people barging in and poking on you.
And then also, I don't know if we had gone into this. So obviously we don't want to touch the manta, but there's an actual, reason, like not just, don't touch the wildlife, but there's an actual scientific reason why we don't want to touch the manta, right?
Yeah, so manta rays have like this mucus layer on their body, and if you touch the manta, you're gonna take that mucus layer off of them, and that mucus layer might be something that's actually protecting them from, well, basically anything, from parasites, or I'm not really sure. I haven't really understand the concept of their mucus layer, but they definitely have a mucus layer, and it's there for something.
Yeah.
And when manta rays mate, the mucus layer kind of gets off a bit when the male manta ray kind of bites the female manta ray. It's something that they do when they're mating. But other than that, their whole body is covered with a layer of mucus, and it's there for a reason. Yeah. And we don't want to get rid of that.
Okay. What is a typical lifespan of a manta?
Manta rays can live for about 40 plus years. That's an approximate. I remember in Kalimantan, there was this guy who said his dad took a picture of a manta like in the 80s. And then I think her name was, what's the French word for mushroom?
My French is horrible.
I can't remember. Oh, champignon. Is that mushroom? Champignon. I forgot. But that mushroom manta, it had like a manta print on the belly. Was still seen in 2019. So it was seen in the 80s, and it was still seen in 2019.
Oh.
So it was pretty cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I was fortunate enough to catch the presentation that you gave last night at the resort that I'm staying at, and in one you had mentioned it's not on the extinction list, but they're in danger. I don't know if you want to go into that a little bit.
Yeah, so reef manta rays are classified as vulnerable to extinction, so it's vulnerable already, and giant oceanic manta rays are listed as threatened. It's a higher level of emergency because giant oceanic manta rays are less studied because they are more difficult to study. They tend to be offshore, off the coast, so it's a bit difficult, while reef manta rays are kind of more reliable to see. And since manta rays have a long reproductive growth, it takes a long time for them to regrow their population. So that's why with targeted fisheries or bycatch, they can take a couple of manta rays at one time, but returning or like gaining back the population would be much more longer than when it was taken.
What are your plans for when your internship is complete?
I have to finish my thesis, and then after that, after graduating, I would find a place for my dive masters, because I want to stay in the diving life. I don't want to go to an office work or anything like that, because that's just not me. I've known it since I was a kid. I don't like staying in a room unless like it's in my bedroom. Yeah.
Okay.
Probably finding my dive masters in a place like this that has marine megafauna, so that I won't be bored just seeing corals and reef fish. It's either in Nusa Penida or somewhere other than the Java area.
Okay. And then what about you? Where do you see the Marine Megafauna Foundation going?
We are a very small team here at MMF Indonesia, so right now I am trying to recruit an old intern as a research assistant, because I will be in the US to finish my master's. Hopefully by next year I will be finished, but when I'm not here, I still want to keep some things going, like some of the manta talks or just being in the dive boat. That's one thing that I'm trying to do, is to recruit a research assistant to do some of the things and keep MMF Indonesia going. But hopefully once I finish my master's, I kind of want to, hopefully I can grow MMF Indonesia a bit bigger, maybe have a bit more people within our team, secure more funding. Lately, with a smaller team, our focus mainly has been on research, very little on education, meaning educating the local communities. But hopefully with a larger team, we can actually tackle research, conservation, and education a bit more further.
I am somebody that wants to help. How can I help out, or what can I do to help the foundation?
Firstly, donating. That is one thing that is very helpful for smaller NGOs, because we rely a lot on charity and a lot on our sponsors. However, one way you can definitely help is through the citizen science movement, through uploading your pictures to mantamatcher.org. That way, if we are not diving that day, we still get data from people who actually did dive that day. So that is definitely one of the ways how you can contribute to marine megafauna research and conservation.
Any last final messages you would like before we close out?
For me, this is what I've been kind of telling people as well, who feel like they're very far from the ocean, is that wherever you are, you're still very connected to the ocean. So just be mindful of the little things that you do around you, your consumption, electricity, things like that. Even if you don't really feel like it's making that much of a difference, it is.
Awesome. That is a great message. Well, thank you very, very much for coming on to the podcast today. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you had a wonderful time, and hopefully we can get this message out there.
Hey, thanks, Nick.
Thank you for having us.
Offgassing, a scuba podcast. Please consider making a donation to this wonderful organization. Every little bit helps. You can show your support at marinemegafauna.org. You can also find a link in the episode description. Let's help these ocean giants out. Dr. Evil will be very grateful.